Welcome back to Totally Based. I'm Joey Gaskin. Charles Barkley recently went on CNN and stated that if he saw a black person walking around in a Trump mugshot, he would punch them in the face. Now, obviously, this was met with a puzzling response from people like myself. I mean, after all, why all the angst? We'll discuss all of that and more coming up next here on Totally Based. All right, guys, so to begin with, my bad. I want to just say I try to do the show every single week, but we've had some remodeling going on, and it's just been a bit of a conflict trying to get to the space at a time that it can be quiet. So I just wanted to leave with that. However, I want to talk about this clip from NBA star Charles Barkley. He's got this new show with Gayle King, and they're sitting down, and they're talking about Donald Trump. And Charles Barkley puts his foot in his mouth. He says that if he sees a black person walking around in a Trump mugshot, that he would punch them in the face. Take a look at this clip.
The former president raised a lot of eyebrows with these comments while talking to, listen to the audience, a black conservative conference. He said this.
I got indicted a second time and a third time and a fourth time. And a lot of people said that that's why the black people like me, because they have been hurt so badly and discriminated against. And they actually viewed me as I'm being discriminated against. The mugshot, we've all seen the mugshot. And you know who embraced it more than anybody else? The black population. It's incredible. You see black people walking around with my mugshot. You know, they do shirts.
When you heard that, what did you think? Big sigh.
First of all, I'm just going to say this. If I see a black person walking around with Trump mugshot, I'm going to punch him in the face.
Charles.
No, Gayle.
Gayle. You really can't say that because, A, you don't mean that.
Oh, I mean that sincerely. I'm going to just tell you something.
And then you will be arrested for assault. And then what?
I'm going to bail myself out and go celebrate. If I
Don't encourage him. Don't encourage him. Okay, but go ahead.
Seriously.
Continue.
First of all, if I was at that
conference, yeah.
I'd have got up and walked out. That was an insult to all black people. Because he's basically just saying, and first of all, to compare black history where we've been discriminated against to his plight.
Yes.
Well, first of all, he's a billionaire. And they're prosecuting him for stuff he did wrong. They're prosecuting him for stuff he did wrong. And for him to compare...
It's still in the court system, Charles. We have to wait. It's still in the court system. But continue.
Well,
continue.
Some of the stuff is true. They did storm the Capitol. They did say that the election was stolen. Those aren't lies, Gayle.
Yeah.
Those are
They
facts.
did say that. They did say that.
But to compare, I would have got up and walked out because it's not a fair comparison. You know, he's a billionaire. He's had a great life. He's been president of the United States. To insult black people who have been discriminated against all these years, to put them in the same category, I was just offended.
Now, Charles says that he's offended because he felt like Trump's comment was insulting to black people. But to be fair, I'm actually offended by Charles's comment because he just threatened to punch the same black people that he claims to care so much about in the face because they're clearly too dumb to think for themselves or to make a decision that's suitable for themselves. But isn't that what the government says? You need me to tell you what's good for you? You don't know what you need. You don't know what's right for you. I know what you need. I'll tell you what to do and who to vote for and what policies will benefit you. But if you don't do as you're told, you ain't black. Well, if we could trust that line of thinking, Mr. Charles Barkley, well, these words would have never come out of your mouth. Take a look.
The reason, and obviously I'm only speaking for myself. The reason I think the Democratic Party and Mr. Biden, President Biden, is losing black votes is they only care about black people every 4 years. They come into our neighborhoods and say, we're going to make stuff better. We're going to do this, do this, do this. And then finally, us black people are like, you know, man, other than my ability to dunk a basketball, all my neighborhoods are still the same. Our schools are still the same. And that's why I think black people are leaving disappointed in the Democratic Party, because I ain't gonna lie, I voted Democratic every time just because I thought it was gonna help black people and poor people. Because black people and poor white people, they're in the same boat. And like, I didn't care who the president was, I'm not gonna lie, but I only voted Republican one time in my life, and that was for John Kasich, and I didn't even know he couldn't win. But then I'm starting to look like, man, I understand why black people are leaving, want to vote for somebody else, because every 4 years they come into our neighborhoods and say, man, we're going to make things better for you.
So in this clip, he's right. Nothing has changed. Even he himself says that he understands why black people are frustrated voting for Democrats. But hold that thought. If you want more content like this video, ring that notification bell, and don't forget to subscribe and follow for more. So tell me again why it is he wants to punch you in the face for wanting to try something different? Oh wait, that's right. Donald Trump is a racist, which he's not. And even if he was, what about Joe Biden? Joe Biden has said some things in the past that have definitely been questionable. Take a listen.
Trump, and you ain't black. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
I mean, you got the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and nice-looking guy.
Biden recalling his early Senate career, bringing up two segregationist senators, Herman Talmadge and James Eastland, who called African Americans an inferior race. I was in a caucus with James O. Eastland, Biden said. He never called me boy. He always called me son. At least there was some civility. We got things done.
The senators that he is speaking of with such adoration are individuals who made and built their reputation on segregation. The Ku Klux Klan celebrated the election of one of them.
Using the word boy in the way he did can cause hurt and pain, and we need a presidential nominee and leader of our party to be sensitive to that.
My Democratic colleagues don't like me saying this. I think the two-party system is good for the South and good for the Negro, good for the black. Other than the fact that they still call me boy, I think they've changed their mind a little bit.
As also noted, Robert C. Byrd was a parliamentary library, a keeper of the institution of the Senate, and he was the institution itself. For a lot of us, he was a friend, and he was a mentor, and he was a guide.
1987, he bragged about getting an award from George Wallace.
Biden bragged about an award from the notorious segregationist Governor George Wallace and told the Philadelphia Inquirer, I think the Democratic Party could stand a liberal George Wallace, someone who's not afraid to stand up and offend people.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. Unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things. They're going to put you all back in chains.
Biden was remarking to an audience in South Virginia that included hundreds of black voters.
If Haiti just quietly sunk into the Caribbean or rose up 300 feet, it wouldn't matter a whole lot.
The reason I was able to stay sequestered in my home is because some black woman was able to stack the grocery shelf.
One thing Biden is being slammed for is the crime bill he helped write 25 years ago that many critics say resulted in mass incarceration, especially of young African-American men.
Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing.
It did contribute to mass incarceration in our country.
There's about 100,000 of them, if you want to be rhetorically extreme about it, who are the predators. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. We have no choice but to take them out of society. It's awful hard as well to get Latinx vaccinated as well. Why? They're worried that they'll be vaccinated and deported. Because I was 29, I'm like the token black or the token woman. I was the token young person. Even call centers, which rushed overseas in the hundreds of thousands. How many times you get the call? I'd like to talk to you about your credit card. Again, you have to start off with what they start off with. There's less than 1% of the population of Iowa that is African American. There is probably less than 4 or 5% of that is our minorities. What is in Washington?
I think it's a vast majority.
Yeah. So look, it goes back to what you start off with, what you're dealing with. If you were, the emperor right now, you're running the show, what are the things that you would do? Lee Kuan Yew, who most foreign policy experts around the world say is the wisest man in the Orient.
Hunter once refused a date because of his own Asian hate. In the 2019 exchange, his cousin Carolyn offers to set him up with one of her friends, to which Hunter replied, "No yellow."
But there's one more band member that I want you to meet. Ladies and gentlemen, our vocalist tonight, Michael Jackson. Michael, would you please stand?
First son Hunter Biden repeatedly called his white attorney the N-word.
He's a grown man. He is the smartest man I know.
Hunter Biden reportedly wrote to his attorney, quote, "How much money do I owe you because, N-word, you better not be charging me Hennessy rates." In another message, Biden began a text to his attorney with OMG, N-word. And Biden responded at one point with, "True that."
Those comments sound a bit sus to me. So don't make the case that you're voting against Donald Trump because he's a racist, because you probably don't like Joe Biden very much either. And if you vote that way, you're just wasting your vote and you still get nothing for it. So why not vote based on policy making? Pick someone who's actually going to build up your community and support local businesses and make things affordable like housing and groceries and gas, and do something about education. Oh, ding, ding, ding. Guess what, Mr. Charles Barkley? That's right. That's exactly what people are trying to do. Wearing Trump's mugshot is not about his relationship to black people. It's about his relationship to what our government is doing to all Americans. Every American who's watching the failure that's taking place at our border right now. Every homeless veteran who's watching them feed and house illegal immigrants and do it right in their face. Every American parent who's seeing these disgusting books that they're allowing in our school libraries. And the list goes on. And you know what really irks me is that this is Charles Barkley doing an SNL skit and a Weight Watchers commercial, getting paid to wear lipstick, fake boobs, high heels, a dress, and even a wig. And that's somehow not insulting to black men. Here you have one of the greatest black professional athletes, not only humiliating himself, but trampling on the example of possibility for a few laughs and for a bag of money. So to be clear, the same man who's wearing a dress and a wig is the same man who's threatening to punch you in the face for wearing a shirt that supports your desire for change in your community. Make that make sense. So at the end of the day, am I at all surprised by Charles Barkley and what he had to say? No, not at all. The guy is bought and paid for. In fact, in my last video, I told you we are not in a race war. We are in a class war. And that's exactly why you see black celebrities like Oprah and LeBron and Jay-Z and even Charles Barkley. They all have the same talking points. They all have the same politics, at least in public anyway. And outside of one thing that they all have in common, which is that they're all black, all of them are also very rich. And their money all comes from the same place, which is the entertainment industry. They are hired. They all have contracts. They are sitting inside the house. We are not. There are things that they cannot say, and there are things that they have to say. It's just like a CEO of a publicly traded company. That CEO is making all the money, but they can't just say whatever they want to say. They get paid to say what they say. In fact, the reason why is because they're shareholders, and those shareholders can replace them at any time. He works for them. That's the only way someone like Kanye West can lose his billionaire status overnight. If Massa doesn't like what you said, he's going to beat you until you comply and snitch on your brother. It's that simple. So black people, beware of the gatekeepers, for they have one job to do, and that will always result in keeping us where we are. So did you like that video? Well, if you did, you can always find more like it here. And as always, stay tuned for more news, culture, and politics here on Totally Based.